Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about when I go for single-band sidechain versus when I go for multiband. Now these are of course two options you typically have when you're working on sidechaining in your music, and I'm going to be explaining just sort of when I decide to use one over the other and what the benefits of either or kind of are. So first off, I do have an example project here, and I'm going to explain how I set up sidechain to do this either way, because you can actually do both of this in the same plugin, which is nice. So what I've done is I've taken any of the melodic elements of this track. This is just something that I very quickly put together with some samples through FL Cloud, but I have taken every single instance of like what's going to be sidechained and put it on a new mixer, this being mixer track 7. So you see right here, if we listen to the stuff that's not muted, there's literally just two here. It's this guitar and this piano. These are both being pointed to insert 7 here. And of course, we do also have up here sidechain triggers. I'm going to explain that in a second. And our kick drum, which is going to be, what it's sidechained to. So this is what we're going to be working with here. So the way you typically go about setting this up, you need to tell the software like what it's going to be sidechaining with. And rather than do this to the kick itself, what I tend to do is duplicate it. And I'll click on this little symbol on the top left and hit the Make Unique button to make it a new instance of that drum. Zoom in a bit more just so you can see it better. I will shorten it all the way. I accidentally had stretch on, you don't want to do that. Shorten it all the way, and I will put this under each of my kick drums. So like that, for example. I'll put this on a new mixer, so separate from the kick itself, just say 10 for now, and I will unlink it from the master. That way it's not actually making sound. And then what I will do, you see I put all those instruments on insert 7, you see this arrow underneath it, I'll right click and hit sidechain to this track. That's how you set that up, and that's all you need to do. You just want to make sure that's following where each of your kicks are, for example. But now we are ready to actually begin the sidechain process. So I already have those triggers set up for my template, so I'm just going to use those instead. But right now, what we're going to do is put an instance of FabFilter Pro-MB on the instrument send. So this is what it looks like. This is a multiband compression plugin, but this is actually what I use for sidechain. You click on the gear in the top left and go to the processing tab. There's stereo sidechain. You want to right click on that and you'll have the option to choose your sidechain. So now this is pointed to it and ready to be used, and this is where you could set up single band or multiband sidechain. So you see here we have the ability to create a band. You just left click and it does it. If you wanted to do single band, just drag this all the way across and then go to the expert tab and you want to turn on free and external. This just sets it into basically sidechain mode. And this is where you can go about configuring the settings. I like to put the attack all the way at 0 because you want it to hit immediately. I put the range all the way down, threshold all the way down, and then I will edit the release to where I need it to be. So we could listen to it. You see, that's a very heavy sidechain. We can make it heavier with this. Stylistically, I actually think that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. Or you can make it super tight, like this, to where it's doing it, but you don't necessarily hear it. Now, if you wanted this to be multiband sidechain, this is not a track I would use that in actually, and I will open up one where I would to sort of explain that a bit better in a second. But what you do instead, say you wanted to do your bass and your high separately. You move the crossover, so that way you have a band set up like say 150 and below. So right now it's only affecting this. And then, you could solo it if you just want to hear that as you go along. You can add another band. You could do, say, mids and then another one for highs, or you could do mids and highs. That's typically what I tend to do. But that's how you'd set up multiband sidechain. Now, my mindset is like, if I have something that has like really tight bass and I want the mix down to be super tight, make a lot of sense that way, I'm going to go for multiband sidechain. All of my releases have that. If I'm making something a bit chill, like this, for example, and there's not really a defined bass element, it's just kind of a blend of the two sounds, I'll just go for stylistic single band. I also tend to do that for house a lot because you sort of want that pumping effect, it's nice. But I'm going to open up a project where I would do multiband sidechain and explain how I go about configuring that and making it right. So the project I'm opening right now, I don't know if you saw my future drum and bass tutorial I put up a few days ago, this is what we made in that. But this is a perfect example of going for a tight sidechain where you're going to want to do multiband. So I'm just going to wait a second for this to open. Right, here we are. So this one's completely different to our previous project. We got this going on. So you see, this is like a very techy drum and bass track, and I wanted the bass, so like this, for example, I wanted the release on that sidechain to be different than everything else. So you see, we do still have our sidechain instance here. This is a mixer track just for all of the melodic elements. There's two here, one for kick and snare, but you see I've divided this up in a specific way, and I can actually open up an oscilloscope to demonstrate why I've done this. And this is where multiband sidechain is really helpful. So what I have going on here, actually, we're gonna listen to our kick as well because that's really important. Turn on the sidechain trigger. So right now I'm just gonna play the bass. I'm actually gonna play the snare as well, so that way there's not ducking where nothing's happening. But if we take a look at this, so look at this right here, for example. I've paused it. This is our kick, and you see right when the kick is ending, I have the bass start to come into its full power here. Now, if I had kept this just single band, when I was adjusting the release of it, which is, how long it takes to come back into being full, this would actually conflict. I wanted the values to be different, so that way my bass would not conflict with the kick. Like if I had a shorter release, you'd get this weird distortion over here on the kick, which you don't want. But maybe I wanted the high end to have a shorter release, which is sort of what I went for here. If I open that up, I could very clearly show you that. This one right here. So let's listen to everything else now. So put everything back in, but we're just going to solo the mids and highs. See, I have this at 16, and I actually have the bass coming back a bit slower. So if I demonstrate this, say we wanted a very pronounced sidechain. We don't, but say we did. You could, in theory, do that while still having your bass come back right when it needs to. See how the ducking is very obvious on the mids and highs? It has that very obvious sidechain, but the bass is still completely solid where it's being sidechain, but it's not necessarily noticeable. That's the instance where you want to use multiband. So I think it's really useful, especially for making something like this, but again, I go for single band if I'm just making something a bit more chill with, say, a less defined bass, because I think it just works out that way. That's also the nice, quick, and easy way to do it. But when you're, say, finalizing a track, getting it ready for release, I'll go about doing it this way and getting my release values just right, so that way there's either the non-obvious sidechain where it's there for a technical reason but not necessarily audible, or something that gives it that stylistic pumping. That's sort of my mindset on it, as well as how to set it up. I hope this video has helped you out. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. Happy to answer anything I can. But of course, drop a like and subscribe for future content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.